tipping points in Earth's system triggered rapid climate change 55 million years ago, according to new research. This is by the University of Exeter. Scientists uncovered a fascinating new insight into what caused one of the most rapid and dramatic instances of climate change in the history of our planet. A team of researchers led by Dr. Sev Kender from University of Exeter in the UK made a pivotal breakthrough in the cause behind the Pliocene-Eocene thermal maximum, PETM for short, an extreme global warming event that lasted for around 150,000 years, which saw significant temperature rises. Although previous studies suggested volcanic activity contributed to the vast CO2 emissions that drove the rapid climate change, the trigger for event is less clear. In the new study, the researchers identified elevated levels of mercury just before and at the outset of PETM, which could be caused by extensive volcanic activity in samples taken from sedimentary cores in the North Sea, in north of England. Now, crucially, the research of the rock samples also shows that in the early stages of PETM, there was a significant drop in mercury levels, suggesting at least one other carbon reservoir released significant greenhouse gases as the phenomenon took hold. The research indicates the existence of tipping points in the Earth system, which could trigger the release of additional carbon reservoirs that drove the Earth's climate to unprecedented high temperatures. Finally, support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box. The pioneering research, which also includes experts from the British Geological Survey, the Oxford University, Harriet Watt University, and the University of California at Riverside, could give a fresh understanding of how modern-day climate change will affect the Earth in the centuries to come. The research was published in Nature Communications August 31st, 2021. Dr. Kender, a co-author on the study of the Camborne School of Mines, based in the University of Exeter's Penryn campus in Cornwall, said greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide, methane were released to the atmosphere at the start of PETM in just a few thousand years. He said, "We wanted to test the hypothesis that this unprecedented greenhouse gas release was triggered by large volcanic eruptions. As volcanoes also release large quantities of mercury, we measured the mercury and carbon in the sediment cores to detect an ancient volcanism." Now we have mercury, I just want to tell you so that you know. We have mercury being emitted regularly by the geysers in Yellowstone. And a lot of that water goes into the area of the river that drains into the Hebgen Lake. And Hebgen Lake has a lot of hotels and motels around the lake, and people go there for fishing trout. And you have to know that those fish are very high in mercury content, which is of course toxic. And not many people know that. The geysers bring out mercury, and a lot of that drains into the river and goes into Hebgen Lake, where the river empties out. So yeah, that's a regular occurrence in everyday activity in Yellowstone, for an example. So these quantities of mercury here that they found, they measured the mercury and carbon in sediment cores to detect the ancient volcanism. And they said the surprise was that we didn't find a simple relationship of increased volcanism during the greenhouse gas release. We found volcanism occurred only at the beginning phase, and so another source of greenhouse gases must have been released after the volcanism, they said. The PETM phenomenon, which is one of the most rapid periods of warming in the Earth's history, occurred as Greenland pulled away from Europe. You can imagine what was going on at that time when Pangea was splitting up. Greenland splitting up, pulling away from Europe. That's where we have the Mid-Atlantic Trench right now. That's magma under there. Now, while the reasons behind how such vast quantities of CO2 were released to trigger this extensive period of warming, lay hidden for many years, scientists have recently suggested that volcanic eruptions were the main driver. However, while carbon records and modeling have suggested vast amounts of volcanic carbon was released, it has not been possible to identify the trigger point of PETM until now. In the new study, the researchers studied 2 new sedimentary cores from the North Sea which showed high levels of mercury present relative to organic carbon levels. These samples showed numerous peaks in mercury levels, both before and at the onset of PETM period, suggesting it was triggered by volcanic activity. But the study also showed there was at least one other carbon reservoir that was subsequently released as the PTM took hold, as mercury levels appeared to decline in the second part of its onset. Dr. Kender said, "We were able to carry out this research as we have been working on exceptionally well-preserved new core material with collaborators from the Geological Survey of Denmark and Greenland." We know that Greenland belongs to Denmark, of course. The excellent preservation allowed detailed detection of both the carbon released to the atmosphere and the mercury. As the North Sea is close to the region of volcanism thought to have triggered the PETM, these cores were in an ideal position to detect the signals. The volcanism that caused the warming was probably vast, deep, intruding sills producing thousands of hydrothermal vents on a scale far beyond anything seen today. Possible secondary sources of greenhouse gases were melting permafrost and seafloor methane hydrates as a result of the initial volcanic warming. So, the permafrost and the methane hydrates. We have methane volcanoes on the west coast of the US, many of them, hundreds of them, and also on the east coast. This was by University of Exeter research on phys.org. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support.